Triangle to Win is on Patreon. Follow the link you see on the screen to find out how to support the show. This is Triangle to Win, a gaming podcast with a focus on all things PlayStation RPGs, a veritable match made in heaven. The aforementioned combo has given us historic games such as Final Fantasy VII and my personal favorite, Kingdom Hearts. I am your host, Karlobster, and it's time to press Triangle to Win. Hello, hi, what's going on? It's I, Karlobster. Welcome back to Triangle to Win, and this is episode 6, I think it is episode 6, yeah. Wow, I've been doing this for 6 episodes, and it feels like it's longer than it actually is. I think that's because we're doing a bi-weekly thing, and also I kind of skipped 1 week last month as well. But it's been fun. It's been this bi-weekly format kind of works really well for me. It's very kind of low impact, very low commitment in a way. But you know, it's still fun because we get to talk about a lot of things. I feel like if I was limited to I feel like I can maybe do weekly, but just because, you know, I don't really talk about all the news that comes out every week, I feel like the episodes might be too short. You know, might be not as meaty as like a normal 2-hour, 30-minute episode. And also, every time I say that an episode is going to be short, I realize it isn't. It actually ends up not being short. Like, it ends up being still 2 hours and 40 minutes and stuff like that. But honestly, which is fine. I like my podcasts long rather than with a arbitrarily limit of 1 hour or something, especially not an hour. If a podcast is an hour, I don't listen to it. I don't know why. It's because 1 hour is so easy. It's so easy to finish if it's an hour. But who knows? Maybe this episode will be an hour long. Hopefully not, because these past 2 weeks, doesn't actually have a lot of news. At least not a lot of news I'm interested in. But I also said that last week, and we end up still with 2 hours, 30 minutes. However, I am looking forward to talk about some games that I've been playing. I've played like 2 games this past 2 weeks. Just a few hours each, but they're very interesting ones, but I'm going to talk about that later. But yeah, as for me, currently I've been dealing with a health issue, which is this pain in my neck. Now, it's been a while since I had a stiff neck, right? I think that's what we call it here when we pull a muscle in our neck or something. I don't know if it's actually pulling a muscle in the neck, but basically, for example, you fall asleep in a weird position, and then you wake up and your neck just is very sore, and you can't like turn it around. You can't turn your neck in, you know, different places. You can't like bend it in different places in certain directions. We call that stiff neck. I mean, it's a pretty generic term, stiff neck, but we do pronounce it as stiff neck, which is pretty funny. Stiff neck, right? In the Philippines. Also, this AC needs to be stronger. It's really hot these days. Holy crap! I think the heat index reaches like 50 degrees Celsius. That's insane. It's too much. Plus, I have my stiff neck to deal with. So it's kind of annoying. I've been having a very annoying past few days. What happened was I was at a hotel like a few days ago because my parents had like a free room in a hotel or something. So I crashed at the hotel, and then I don't even remember how I fell asleep. And I think that's a problem. It's because in the evening, you know, I was just doing my thing, just, you know, on my laptop, on my phone, just lounging around, lying on the bed, lying on the chair or whatever. And then suddenly, you know, I'm looking at my phone, and then the next second, I'm suddenly waking up in the morning, which is kind of funny, kind of weird. And I think that's the biggest problem that causes stiff neck, is you not actually being actively engaged in sleeping, in falling asleep. It's when you're just chilling and then you accidentally fall asleep. That's when you get into positions where you will wake up with a friggin' stiff neck like me. And so I woke up that morning. I woke up around 5 a.m., I think. and I realized that my neck really hurt. But it was fine. I can still move it. Didn't really think too much about it. I was like, okay, this is gonna subside maybe in a few hours, right? So after I woke up 5 a.m., I took a hot shower because the heating the heater in hotels are great as compared to at home. Took a hot shower and then couldn't really fall asleep from then on, and then just played some games on my Steam Deck and watched some stuff on the TV, on the hotel TV. Oh, by the way, in terms of things I've been watching Lost and When Life Gives You Tangerines. And honestly, I just realized I could probably add something like that as well here in the podcast as well. I don't know. Like, I talk about games that I played. Maybe I can also talk about like whatever show that I watched or movie. Although those are lesser as compared to games. Even though at one point I considered myself more of a film guy rather than a gaming guy. But because of recent developments in my life, I've been doing more gaming than actually watching stuff. But yeah, I've been watching Lost and When Life Gives You Tangerines. Watched a bunch of Lost in the hotel. But then when I came home, like later that day, that's when the neck pain was starting to peak. It was starting to peak, and it was getting pretty annoying, but didn't really think too much about it again. And then fell asleep on my own bed, and my neck already kind of hurts here. Then the next day is when it peaked, which is 2 days ago now. It really peaked, and it came to a point where I was when evening came by, and I was just sitting. I woke up from I didn't really woke. I stood up from my bed and then sat on the chair next to my bed. And then I couldn't move my neck any direction because if I move it in any direction, it hurts. And the awful thing is, even its normal resting position, like the normal position where it's just in the middle without even bending left or right or up or down, whatever, it hurts because the actual act of keeping your neck stable in the middle still engages these muscles that are sore, right? Which is annoying. And then if I lie down on bed, then lying down on a pillow or something kind of forces my neck to bend in certain directions as well, which causes pain. So that was 2 nights ago. That was the lowest point in my life. That was like the very lowest point in my life. It was heartbreaking, man. I was just sitting down and I was just talking to myself and I was like, I can't take this anymore. It hurts. Everything hurts. Right? And this is with the pain medications that I bought. That morning, I bought a lot of pain medications. I bought like Salonpas, which is the kind of tape that you put that has like the medication on it. Then I also bought this this kind of roll-on. It looks like a deodorant thing. Apparently, it's made in Japan. That you just roll on your skin around the area where the muscles hurt, right? And it has an abrasive surface, which is kind of weird. I don't know why it has an abrasive surface, which kind of so whenever I apply it on my skin, on my neck, it kind of hurts my neck, the surface of my neck. So that's weird. Then I bought like Norgesic Forte, which is like a combination of paracetamol and something else. And then I even bought like ibuprofen and just took all of them all at the same time. And it still hurts. Like it still hurt like it hurt so much. But for some reason 2 nights ago when I was, crying because of the pain, there was a moment where I sat down on where I lay down on my bed, and for some reason my neck felt looser. Just that little bit looser. Then I was like, okay, it's time to sleep. It's time to sleep. Please, let's sleep. Because sleeping will cause a time skip. And a time skip is great, so I don't have to feel the pain in my neck anymore. But then I woke up and everything was fine when I woke up. the pain was lesser, and it was more bearable. And now, unfortunately, this morning, the pain worsened again, just by a little, just by a little. But now I think the pain is subsiding again. So, and all I did for the whole day was really just rested. I just lied down on my bed and just stopped moving on my neck the whole day. And maybe that's really what I should be doing, which is just keep it steady instead of still just using it and bending it in different directions. Freaking neck, swear to God. Now, what's crazy is that I've had neck pain before. I've had stiff neck before when I was a child, right? When I was younger. But none of those times has been as debilitating as this one. And my God, does it hurt? I don't know if it just actually super really hurts or I'm just more sensitive. I don't think I'm sensitive. I have a good pain tolerance. It really, really hurts. So that's what I've been dealing with. But fortunately, because of that, I've been able to watch a bunch of Lost. Lost is a TV show from, the era around Breaking Bad. Those shows. Actually, this Lost came a year after the first showing of Battlestar Galactica, which is my favorite TV show ever. Alongside Mad Men as well. And it's really good. The basic premise is that there are a bunch of these individuals that were on a plane from Australia going to somewhere, and basically the plane crashed on an island, and so they're left to deal with they most of them lived, and they're left to deal with trying to survive on the island, right? That's the basic premise. However, it's not just about survival on the island. There's apparently the island has like some weird secrets surrounding it, and there's some sort of mystery to the island, and there's even evidence of other people on that island, and something more sinister going on, something deeper, which is the interesting part. It's not new, but it's it's interesting, and it's so nice to watch a show like that from that era, around the Battlestar Galactica era, because there's just a certain quality to like even not just the look, not just the visual, but also the sound design and also the soundtracks that just whenever I watch this show and listen to it, I feel like I'm being transported back to when I was a kid, when I was a younger watching these shows. And it feels really good to watch it, because I feel like a lot of shows these days, for example, are very clean with their presentation. They're very clean to look at. They're very they all have like soft lighting, and more modern like filmmaking techniques. Whereas for Lost, one of the biggest things way back when during that era is like that super shaky cam thing when there's action. So watching Lost kind of gives me a headache sometimes because the camera just moves so much when there are action parts. But aside from that, also there's a much more present film grain. The colors pop more. The lighting is also more harsh. There's not a lot of soft lighting in there. You can actually see like the characters being backlit by a strong light, especially in the evening. And evenings are bright, Whereas I feel like for shows these days, I remember I was watching Sabrina. What was that show? The Sabrina show. Season 1 was great. However, I remember when I started to watch season 2, it was unbearable for me because the show was so friggin' dark. It was so dark. I was watching on my iPad as well. I think I was watching on my iPad at work. But the way the show is like color graded or shot or something is way too dark. It feels like 80% of the pixels on my screen are like turned off. And I couldn't deal with it. I couldn't even watch through the whole season 2. Couldn't even get past like the first like few episodes because I can't see. I couldn't see anything. Now watching Lost, makes me feel, oh, it's nice to see everything, except for the fact that the shaky cam is insane. But watching Lost is one thing, but the other show I'm watching is When Life Gives You Tangerines, and that show is a K-drama featuring IU. IU is like my favorite like solo act in Korea, like a solo singer in Korea. And God, this show is so good. The best way I can describe how the show looks is it's very immersive. I don't know what they do. I don't know what they're doing with the visuals, but the visuals are just so very immersive to me. Everything from first off just the look of it, and also the set design and the costume design. Everything, every color of the environment and the costumes are intentional. It's very blue. It's very blue and teal. And it's just so nice. It's so, and also I'm watching on my really good TV. This TV at my parents' house is really good. It's the LG OLED. And my God, such a treat to watch. Also, the story is really nice and dramatic. It's very sad. And what's interesting about it is that it's not just a story of, the main character. It's a story that crosses like generations of characters. And it's basically about the life of one, maybe two persons, but like the main character. But it goes through like from when they were a child up to when they're really old, and everything that comes with that. And it's just so good. It feels so realistic too. I don't really want to spoil anything about the show because it's still pretty new, but I am definitely enjoying it so much. But yeah, dealing with stiff neck and a bunch of things. What else could we do? Could we talk about for housekeeping? Pretty much nothing else, I think. I've also been dabbling in VR recently. I've been using my PSVR 2 more. I also got some Mokapi trackers as well for some 3D stuff, and they're pretty okay. I wish they were better, or I still haven't really spent too much time calibrating them, so maybe they can be improved by a lot. But for now, it's serviceable. Not really that special. They're expensive, but not that expensive as compared to like a full mocap system, or like even the Vive trackers or the base stations and the Vive headset or whatever. But yeah, that's pretty fun so far. I guess there's nothing else. We can start with the podcast now. Let me drink some water first, actually. Okay. So yeah, I feel like this episode is gonna be the shortest one yet. I really tried to search far and wide for interesting news to talk about, but there isn't really a lot because the news space recently has been dominated by a lot of Switch 2. And a lot of what was it? A lot of Switch 2 and a lot of Oblivion Remastered. And there's not really much else going on, I think. So I guess what I'm going to do now for this episode is I'm just going to front load all the news. Let's just talk about all the news, and plus the RPG news. And then we can move on to the games that I'm playing and wanted to talk about. And then we can end the show after that. Yeah. Yeah, it should be a short and sweet little episode. Okay. Let's see. Also, I feel like in a few weeks-ish, I'll finally be able to actually stream on my, my Twitch account, which is Karlobster, twitch.tv/Karlobster. Should be good. Finally be able to play games on there as well, just casual streaming. So I might use the Twitter account for Triangle to Win to also promote that whenever I'm live and stuff like that. Should be cool. Should be good. But yeah. Then, wait, I'm pretty sure I have something to talk about that I forgot. Oh, right. By the way, everybody who's listening, if you want to support the show, you can go over to patreon.com/triangle to win. We have 2 tiers. The first tier is more of a support tier. It's just $1, right? And the second tier is a $5 tier, which you can get these episodes 3 days early, 3 days earlier than the YouTube upload. So, and that's bi-weekly. You get it 3 days early. Then you also, the audio that you get is also ad-free as compared to if you watch on YouTube, there's going to be ads on there. But that's pretty much it. Thank you so much to everybody who supports this small little endeavor. Honestly, this is more just a little hobby, interesting little hobby for me that I can just freely talk about games and not really worry too much about just saying what's on my mind about them. And it's a pretty nice little exercise for me to keep up with the games industry and keep up with all the news and stuff like that, because I really love keeping up with all the stuff in the industry. I feel like the peak where my finger was on the pulse like the whole time was maybe during the PlayStation 3 era. That's around 2006-ish. I was just checking the news every day. I wasn't even doing podcasts or anything. I just really liked reading the news and reading all the cool new stuff and announcements and drama and issues, right, that's going on in the industry, because I think the industry is really interesting. And, it's a hobby that I like. We all like, probably, if you're listening to it, gaming, right? And I just think it's very, very nice to talk about, even if it's just me rambling on and on and on and on about things, maybe getting things wrong, maybe getting things inaccurate, but it's pretty fun. Pretty fun for me. So thank you so much to people who are supporting me on Patreon, right? I do believe I said before that there were going to be clips for, some clips of the segments that I talk about and stuff like that. However, there's been a delay in the process for that. I'm trying to find a way to get clips out, because those are the surefire ways actually to get more eyes on the podcast. And just looking at the sole clip that I posted so far on the YouTube, it has like a lot of views for a channel that has nothing. Like, I think that's 500 plus views or something, which is pretty fun, actually. I'll try and find a way to get those clips out, but we'll see. Okay, let's start with the news. First off, Cronos: The New Dawn gets new gameplay trailer. Now, Cronos: The New Dawn is this new game made by Bloober Team, who you may remember is the team that made Silent Hill 2 remake? Yeah, the Silent Hill 2 remake. And I also remember that I was very, very, I didn't believe in Bloober Team. Let's just say it like that. I didn't believe in them. Believe in them. I remember their portfolio of games and stuff, and it didn't really resonate with me. They didn't really scream like they'd be the team that will bring back Silent Hill back to its glory days. That'll actually make a good remake of Silent Hill, even if thematically their previous work would fit to make Silent Hill 2 remake. Even if that was the case, they really did not have me definitely on their court until, Silent Hill 2 remake released, and I played it, and it was fun. It was great. Actually, a lot of people liked it. I think there were even some like Game of the Year nominations for it as well, or at least Game of the Year, or at least performances of the year from it as well. So Bloober Team definitely now on everybody's radar, and people are currently looking forward to what they're making. However, I didn't expect them to be making something new immediately. I would have expected them to work more on the Silent Hill remakes rather than just have a completely new IP to show right after Silent Hill 2. But I guess they've been working on this maybe alongside Silent Hill, or maybe they're currently working on this game alongside whatever Silent Hill remake that Konami wants them to make. But yeah, so Cronos: The New Dawn is their new game, and it's coming later this year from Video Games Chronicle. The game takes place across 2 time periods: the grim ruins of a post-apocalyptic future, as well as in 1980s era Poland. And if I'm not wrong, I think Bloober Team is from Poland, so they know the history of their place, their country. So it's something they're good at. I mean, they're good at. They're an expert in, probably, or they have more knowledge in compared to if someone else would make it. So it's set for release later in 2025, PS5, Xbox Series XS, and PC, but no specific release date has been announced, and they released a new gameplay trailer. The trailer highlights the game's key gameplay loop, where enemies don't stay dead for long, and if the player doesn't burn them, they can be absorbed into other enemies, making them stronger. So, the co-director producer said, "Imagine this: a distorted mix of sci-fi, time travel, retro futuristic dread, and body horror, all set against a gritty backdrop of 80s Poland. What a ride, right? And whatever you do, don't let them merge." So that's kind of like their tagline for this game: "Don't let them merge." And that's a gimmick that they have for this game, that if the enemies are dead, I mean, if you defeat the enemies and you don't burn them, like to make them disappear, they can just revive themselves, combine with each other, and become even stronger. And so that's pretty interesting. That's pretty interesting as a gimmick for a game, for a horror game. And I did watch a trailer, and I have to say the trailer looks really good. Like visually, it has a strong like visual style. It reminds me a lot of Dead Space, actually, with the way it looks, and with also the third person over the shoulder camera view. However, I also felt this with Silent Hill 2, is that I feel like Bloober Team is making games from 10 years ago. When I look at this trailer, I feel like, hey, this is the type of game you'd release like 10 years ago already. I'm not talking about graphical fidelity and stuff like that. It's a whole over the shoulder shooter thing. It's the same way I felt when I watched the trailer for Mind's Eye. Mind's Eye is a new like game from Leslie, the Leslie guy who was formerly from the GTA team. He's making a new third-person shooter action game, and whenever I see that game, all I can think about is this game from 10 years ago? Wow. This looks like an old game, even if graphically it's more modern. Just this over-the-shoulder shooting thing just feels old to me now. And I felt the same way with Silent Hill 2 when I was playing that game. The whole time I was feeling, man, this feels old. Which to be fair, Silent Hill 2 is old, but the gameplay style now of the third person over the shoulder, maybe a cover shooter or something, or stuff like that, you know, the Dead Space type of game, it feels very old now. And we'll see. I mean, it looks good, but I am I'm falling into the whole thing again with Bloober Team, is that, yeah, they made Silent Hill 2 remake, but who's to say that the next one is going to be as good, right? Have they truly figured it out? Because Silent Hill 2 was a departure from their previous games, where there were more walking simulators, and for Silent Hill 2 they added a little bit more gameplay, but that gameplay was still very bare bones. The gameplay for Silent Hill 2 was bare bones, very easy. It was serviceable, not really anything special. Then it looks like this one, they're upgrading the combat by a lot. There's more mechanics to it. And now I'm thinking, do they really know how to do this? Do they know how to make a competent third-person shooter that's not just like simple and bare bones like Silent Hill 2? We'll just have to see. But Bloober Team seems to think that they know how to make a good game now. And that, I think I remember before they had an interview with someone and they said, they were like, okay, we're done making bad games. We figured it out. It's time to just make good games now. So they're very confident with themselves now because of Silent Hill 2 remake. So we'll see. Looking forward to this. Hope it's good. Aside, you know, I feel like for these games, I just hope the story is good, right? especially for these third-person shooters, over-the-shoulder shooters, I feel like they always have a lackluster story, and they prioritize the gameplay more than the story. But this is a very nice premise of there being two time periods, which is the future and 1980s era Poland. How those are gonna intertwine with each other is very interesting, and also the fact that 1980s era Poland, I know nothing about that, so that in itself is gonna be just is something new to experience in general. So looking forward to this. Bluebird team, hope you cooked. Coming later this year. Thank you. Now for the next article is Respawn reveals gritty Clone Wars story, Star Wars Zero Company for PS5, Xbox, and PC. The Star Wars strategy game was fully unveiled at Celebration in Japan. So EA has fully unveiled Star Wars Zero Company, the single-player turn-based tactics game developed by Bit Reactor in collaboration with Respawn Entertainment. Set for release in 2026 for PC, PS5, Xbox Series. But the interesting thing about this game is that it's been a while since I've seen a tactics game, so to speak. Kind of like XCOM in a way. And the fact that this is Star Wars makes it a little bit more interesting to me, just because I like that aesthetic and I really like that. I really like the whole vibe of Star Wars, even if I'm not a super big Star Wars fan anymore. I was a big one way back when with the original trilogy and even the prequels. I really like those as well. The sequels. The prequels? The prequels. Yeah, the prequels. I actually really like those. I just really like the whole vibe of Star Wars with the music, right? And the lightsabers, the Jedi, the Sith. I think that's really interesting, but I'm not a purist by any means. But I really like also that this has the kind of tactics gameplay as well, which makes this much more interesting to me compared to like that Star Wars game that was more of an action kind of Souls-like game. But yeah, pretty interesting. It's also for the Clone Wars era. Pretty good. Nothing really much else to talk about. I just really like that trailer, which I saw. I really like what I saw from the trailer, at least for the gameplay parts. The trailer was unnecessarily long because they added like 2 minutes of CG in the beginning and like 30 minutes of gameplay. But I really want to dig my teeth into a new like tactics game, kind of like XCOM. Is tactics even the correct word for that? I feel like tactics is reserved for stuff like Final Fantasy Tactics. But there is another kind of subgenre within the tactics strategy RPG that plays more like XCOM than tactics. I don't know what that's called though. But yeah, looking forward to this. Star Wars Zero Company. Should be interesting. And to the next piece of news. Oh, this is very interesting, actually. From Video Games Chronicle. Palworld dev fights Nintendo lawsuit with comparison to Fallout, Monster Hunter, and more. Nintendo and the Pokemon Company claim Palworld infringes on their patent. So, if you remember, Palworld released, when was it released? 2 years ago? A year ago? January 19, 2024. And I think it sold like a bajillion copies or something. It was released last year via Steam Early Access, and Palworld was an immediate hit, attracting 25 million players in just its first month, according to Pocketpair. So they were able to sell like 25 million of this game because people are really hungry for a more modern feeling Pokemon style game. However, I think it was around last year as well, Nintendo filed a lawsuit against Pocketpair in Japan last year, alleging that Palworld infringes on 3 patents that are related to monster catching gameplay, all of which were initially filed by Nintendo Pokemon Company between February and July last year. And remember, I said Palworld was released in January last year, and then these patents were filed by Pokemon and Nintendo Company, the Pokemon Company, in February and July. So that's like a month and a few months after Palworld was released. So they're suing Pocketpair and Palworld on a patent that they filed for after the game's release. So these patents didn't exist before Palworld's release. Okay? So, an extensive post on Games Fray, Pocketpair's defense against a lawsuit has been revealed. In a series of preparatory briefs filed in February, Pocketpair argues that Nintendo's patents in suit shouldn't have been granted because prior work using them was released before the date Nintendo claimed to have invented them. So technically, because these were filed like in February and July, then, it wasn't a thing before Palworld released. Even if they were making monster catching games and stuff like that, they weren't patented until after Palworld's release. So they're kind of suing Palworld retroactively, in a way, which is kind of weird, honestly. I'm wondering if Nintendo really thinks they're gonna win this, based on that. Addressing one patent about capturing characters by releasing fighting characters, monsters, or capture balls, Pocketpair argues that its own Craftopia game did exactly the same thing, yet Nintendo didn't sue for that. The studio then lists multiple games that it argues proves that a certain feature was already known before Nintendo filed the original patent application. It claims that Rune Factory 5, Titanfall 2, and Pikmin 3 Deluxe, friggin' Nintendo game, allows players to release a monster or a capture item like a ball and fire in a direction by releasing a button. It also notes that Pikmin 3 Deluxe, Far Cry 5, and Tomb Raider already show that there can be different types of throwable objects. In Pocket Souls, Octopath Traveler, Monster Super League, and Final Fantasy XIV allow players to pick targets on a field and show how likely the capture operation is to succeed. Defending another patent related to capturing characters, Pocketpair points to Octopath Traveler, Monster Super League, Nexamon, Craftopia, Pikmin 3 Deluxe, the Nukamon mod for Fallout, and Monster Hunter 4G. Nintendo and Pokemon Company are each seeking 5 million yen plus late payment fees. So yeah, I think initially when the news came out that Nintendo was suing Pocketpair for something, it really wasn't revealed way back then what they were suing Pocketpair for. It was only until later that we got some clarity as to what's going on and what exactly was Nintendo targeting from Pocketpair. Initially, people thought that Nintendo was going to sue Pocketpair for the AI-generated designs, in a way, or at least the designs that very much looked like Pokemon designs. I think that's what people thought was the best case that Nintendo had against Pocketpair, where their characters basically are like, they just took the characters from Pokemon and just changed it a little, and that's it. So in a way that's kind of infringing on their copyright, right? But it turns out Pokemon is instead suing them for something else. And they're suing them for the gameplay mechanic of capturing a monster with a ball or an item. And in another patent is capturing a monster with a ball or item and showing the percentage chance of it being captured, right? And to top this all off, they didn't have the patent in place before Palworld released. They filed for the patent after Palworld released. And now they're suing Palworld retroactively based on the patent that didn't exist when Palworld was released. I don't know what Nintendo's deal is here. I don't know why they even did this, unless they're super confident that they'll win. But honestly, these are the reasons Nintendo is suing Pocketpair, it's for the gameplay mechanic of catching monsters, then this to me just feels like bullying in a way, right? Because I can understand maybe them being mad at the characters looking like Pokemon, because come on, they do look like existing Pokemon designs. What little I know of Pokemon, when I saw the Palworld designs, like, hey, doesn't that look like Electabuzz or whatever that game, whatever the character is? Doesn't that look like a Jigglypuff or Clefairy or whatever, right? But I would have been fine for that. You know, it's their IP, and they want to protect it, and they want to make sure that this other game is not infringing on their rights. Fine, right? But since they're targeting capturing monsters with an item, bro, there's so many games that do that. Why? It's like when the React guys patented the word React, or patented or like claimed the word React or something, trademarked it or whatever. It's like, bruh, you can't do that. You can't do that. And this feels very similar in that Pocketpair suddenly owns the rights to capturing a monster with an item. I don't think so. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see how this develops. I feel like it'd suck if Nintendo wins. Because what does that mean? So no other game can be about catching monsters anymore with an item, I guess. Wouldn't Monster Hunter also fall into this, where you like capture little bugs or something with a net, right? But yeah, interesting. What the hell, Nintendo? What the hell? Now you're just crushing my dreams of making another monster catching game. Okay, now we go on to the next news. Oh, from Japan, from Video Games Chronicle, renting PS5s proving extremely popular in Japan, with most stores selling out. The service allows players to take home a PS5 for around $6 a week. Renting PS5 in Japan is reportedly extremely popular, with most stores at capacity. That's interesting. Japanese retailer GEO has told IT Media News that the service, which the company began earlier this year, has been more popular than they expected. The service was originally launched due to the limited availability of the PS5. And I think the reason also this was a thing is because the PlayStation 5s in Japan just had a recent like price hike. They got a price hike to combat the sudden influx of scalpers from different countries, from elsewhere, I think from China as well. Because, you know, with the weakening yen in Japan, buying a PS5 from Japan is actually cheaper than elsewhere, right? So people have been scalping Japan PS5s. And so in order to combat this, they needed to increase the price of these PS5 consoles in Japan, which made them a lot more expensive to buy, unfortunately. And I think this is also what the Switch 2 is combating by subsidizing a cheaper Japanese version of the Switch 2 as well. Just to also combat that scalping thing, where you need to be a resident in Japan to get this. And it's going to be region locked to Japanese only. Japanese games, Japanese language, Japanese region games as well, you know, stuff like that, to combat this scalping issue because of the weakening yen. So yeah, this service, which is brought by 400 stores across Japan, 400 stores? Lets players rent a PS5 console for either 8 days for 980 yen or $6.62 US, or 15 days for 1780 yen or $12 before returning it to the store. GEO claims that the release of Monster Hunter Wilds has spurred the success of the service. While Sony isn't actively involved in the program, GEO claims that it had deep discussions with the platform holder ahead of the launch of the rental program. A UK leasing agency, Raylo, offers a similar service. Players can choose to lease standard digital PS5 consoles, PlayStation Portal handhelds, PSVR 2 headsets. Ugh, what? Renting a PSVR 2 headset? No, I don't know. They can also sign up for 12-month, 24-month, or 36-month terms for lower monthly payments. Holy crap! They're gonna borrow a PS5 for 36 months? Wouldn't that cost you the same? Wouldn't that cost you the same amount of just buying a PS5 outright? Huh, interesting. While renting consoles isn't new, it's possible that its increased popularity is due to the lack of PS5 price cut 5 years into its life cycle, and in the case of some SKUs, price increases. So yeah. Now, to anybody watching, this is your chance to start a business if you want. I don't know if it'll work. I'm thinking if this service will work in the Philippines. Rent a PS5 for this is $6. This is $6 a month. So 300 to 400 pesos a week. Then 600 pesos for 2 weeks. Is that cheap? That's pretty cheap if you can play like a lot of hours on that week alone. Right? It's super cheap if you can take a whole week off from work and just play Monster Hunter Wilds 24/7 on that PS5 until you've had your fill. And then when you're done with it, you give it back. Right? This actually could, yeah, if you don't really want to commit to getting a full console and having it stay in your house when you're not even sure if you're going to be playing it after like Monster Hunter Wilds, right? This is pretty good, actually. Good for them that they made this into a business. They have 400 stores across Japan to rent a PS5. Hey! I should do this when I go to Japan, right? Sometimes I need to be in Japan for a long period of time. I can rent a PS5 and then friggin' stream from it or something. Ha! Interesting. Wow, this okay. The gears in my brain are turning. I should have done this. Monster Hunter Wilds. I was in Japan when Monster Hunter Wilds released. I probably wouldn't have a PS5 to rent because everybody and their mothers were renting a PS5. So yeah, interesting. I don't think this will work here in the Philippines actually, because I think when people see 300 something pesos for 1 week, they'll look at that and be like, expensive. They'll still say it's expensive, right? Because here in the Philippines, it doesn't matter what kind of price you put on anything, they'll always say it's expensive. Okay, but good for them. Good for them. Okay, next article. Ooh, interesting one. Very interesting. Devolver Digital reveals which IPs and platforms have made the most money as it shares its future strategy. Now, Devolver Digital is a publisher of a bunch of indie games, right? And these indie games are all just very popular. Devolver Digital is really good at identifying like good developers to support and release their games from. It's crazy. It's crazy. But this is just so interesting because remember, I'm just remembering things like Final Fantasy VII Remake, right? Final Fantasy VII Remake, I think, sold like 7 million copies or something like that. And Square Enix was not happy with their sales for that game. But that also is like a $70 game and a sequel. So it makes sense that it just sells like 7 million-ish maybe on one platform. Mind you, that's just on one platform or something, if I remember correctly. But just looking at these numbers, it's so interesting when publishers release numbers and stuff. But look at this. Look at this. So there's a list here. Their most successful IP is Cult of the Lamb. And Cult of the Lamb made more than $90 million. That's a lot. More than $90 million of lifetime revenue for a small game like that, Cult of the Lamb. Holy crap. This was followed by Astroneer, which made more than $80 million. Followed by Stronghold, more than $50 million. Then it goes down the list. Serious Sam more than $45 million. Oh, it even says how many titles have been released. So for example, Cult of the Lamb, one released title, just one, and it made more than $90 million. Astroneer, just one title, and made more than $80 million. Then you have games like Serious Sam, titles released 11, made more than $45 million. Then it also notes here if there's paid DLC on them. And it seems like the top 4 that they have, Cult of the Lamb, Astroneer, Stronghold, and Serious Sam, all have paid DLC. Whereas the next ones, like Gungeon, Shadow Warrior, Hotline Miami, Reigns, Gorn, all did not have paid DLC. And then you also have here Talos Principle, which had paid DLC. So Hotline Miami is one of the more interesting games here that I really liked. It made more than $30 million. And that was a very small game. That was a very small, inexpensive game. So that's crazy that it made so much money. But Devolver Digital is great at identifying like these little games that can make them a lot of money with very little like budget put into them. Just a good idea. Good idea put into them. So according to the slide, gamers are spending more time on known IPs as opposed to new IPs. And Devolver plans to respond to this by leaning further into our own popular IPs in a variety of ways. Devolver notes that 5 of the 10 franchises in the list already have sequels announced, including Astroneer, Gungeon, The Talos Principle, Gore, and Stronghold. And its key strategic focus going forward includes releasing more paid DLC. Because it seems like games with paid DLC make more money. Especially if the DLC is good. They also because of this, they also want to make more definitive editions of these games, maybe with a paid DLC already packed in, or maybe like the first game in the duology and the second game just packed together to make a definitive edition, right? And they also want to focus on making more sequels being worked on across popular IPs, both first and third party, and a reduced average investment on third-party games. Focus on smaller development budget with high success potential and scope for future paid DLC. So that's their sauce. That's their secret to success, right? Smaller budgets on big ideas with high success potential, and with an opening for future paid DLC, right? The decision to right-size 3 subsidiaries and giving them a tighter focus, reducing affected team sizes by approximately 50%. Oh, so they're kind of downsizing some subsidiaries to make them tighter, right? And also decrease, the expenses, but just make it just right. They want to cut out the bloat in a way. Invest into first-party development to make time and cost more efficient, and working with Nintendo to develop Switch 2 games because the original Switch is its most successful console for unit sales. So it's great to see this, actually. I really like this little presentation that they have. And this is what they have in the future for 2025 and beyond. They got Baby Steps, which is going to be every streamer's game when it releases. Baby Steps. Enter the Gungeon 2, which is a sequel, Skate Story, Tenjutsu Force Strike, Monster Train 2, another sequel, and Star Seeker Astroneer Expeditions sequel as well. So this is really interesting. It's just nice to see when a publisher is having a lot of success with their strategies and the types of games that they're releasing and the types of developers that they're supporting, and them being able to make a lot of money on smaller, more tight-knit games, or tight games as compared to big productions like a Final Fantasy VII remake or stuff like that, right? So yeah, that's a very interesting thing. We don't usually get a lot of numbers like that, but they were happy to share it because honestly, yeah, it's pretty cool, pretty cool. So, in other news, for PlayStation news, finally, some news about PlayStation. Ghost of Yotei release date has been announced. The Ghost of Tsushima sequel has a release date. Ghost of Tsushima, a game I still haven't played. I need to play that game. I'll need to make time for it someday. So Ghost of Yotei is coming to October 2. So I have, God, I have 4 months, 6 months. I mean, 6 months to freaking play it. So it's gonna release. $70 is its price for Ghost of Yotei. Players who pre-order the game will receive a unique in-game mask as well as a set of 7 PSN avatars featuring concept art of Atsu and each member of the Yotei 6 at launch. I don't know what that is, but sure. There's also collector's edition of the game. Pre-order bonuses. And a replica display edition of Atsu's ghost mask. Pretty cool. Oh, that's cool. The mask is built to scale with Jin's mask. Oh, that's nice. So you get 2 masks. Oh, I actually really like that. God, this game looks so good. I'm just looking at the screenshots. It's really good. It's so good. But yeah, I need to still play Ghost of Tsushima. When Ghost of Tsushima was released, I wasn't too hyped for it, honestly. Mostly because I feel like I've been pretty burnt out on Game Japan, right? Where a game is just set in Japan. Like time period, old period Japan. Something like that. But the more I think about it, there's a lot of games that I can think about that's just straight up set in Japan. Even the new Assassin's Creed Shadows is just set in Japan and stuff like that. So I didn't really think too much about it. You know, we've had a bunch of games already like that. Onimusha, we got Tenchu, and so much more. That when Ghost of Tsushima was released, I was like, not super interested. I was more interested in Sucker Punch's other games, which were Infamous. I wanted more Infamous from them or something similar. So didn't really think too much about Ghost of Tsushima. However, you know, even like Rise of the Ronin just released recently, as well, has the same Game Japan feel to it. But I think now would be a good time to play Ghost of Tsushima. Definitely. And see what the fuss is about. Like, even just looking at that game still looks like one of the best looking games I've ever seen still. Sekiro, you know, just Japan, right? So, yeah, Ghost of Yotei, want to be there day 1 for Ghost of Yotei and see what's up. All right. More PlayStation news. Whoa, we got another PlayStation news. Look at that. PS5's classic PlayStation themes are coming back this week. A new audio focus feature is also coming to the system. Now, if you may remember, last year was the 30th anniversary of PlayStation. And to celebrate the 30th anniversary of PlayStation, they released various themes for the PS5. And themes are a big deal for the PS5 because they were a feature for the PS4, but they did not make the jump to PS5, unfortunately. So from the jump from PS4 to PS5, we actually had one less feature from the jump from 4 to 5. So now, on the 30th anniversary, it was pretty cool that they were able to add themes to the console in the form of a PlayStation 1 theme, PlayStation 2, PS3, and PS4 theme. Complete with, you know, different graphics as well as different sounds, like the sounds of the clicks and the keys and the you know, the BGM, the ambient sound, even the logo intro. For example, the PS1, you got the PS1 boot up animation when you turned on the PS5, which is pretty cool. But it seems like then they took them away. Right? I think they took them away after a month or something. They took the feature away. And people were like, what? You already made it. Just keep it there. And so on April 23, Sony announced that the classic PlayStation themes first debuted during the PlayStation 30th anniversary celebration are coming back permanently starting this week. So last year, Sony released a PS5 update that let players customize aspects of the console's operating system based on different console generations. This included the PS1 boot up animation as a new startup sequence and a variety of themes based on PS1, 2, 3, 4, or the 30th anniversary, which could be applied to the home screen and other areas. Then they were removed in January. However, they will return to PS5 on April 24 as part of a system update. So that's pretty cool. I need to bring back my PS2 theme. I really enjoy the PS2 one compared to the others. It felt a little bit more tied together compared to like the PS1 thing. The PS1 was funny because they just had the front of PS1 console like on top of the screen. That's funny. PS3 was good too, actually, but PS3 and 4 still feel recent to me, so I don't really want to put them there. However, PS2, I want to put that. That's decidedly very old to me now. The PS2. I want to bring that back. Also, another thing they introduced here is that they announced Audio Focus, a new feature which increases immersion by providing presets to amplify soft sounds to meet your hearing preferences, ensuring a clearer audio experience when using headphones or headsets. So they have 4 modes here: boost low pitch, amplify low frequency sounds like roaring engines and rumbling noise, boost voices, amplify voice chats, character voices, and other middle frequency sounds, boost high pitch, high frequency sounds like footsteps and metallic noises, and boost quiet sounds, amplify low volume sounds in a wide range of frequencies. So this is pretty useful as well. I can see the footsteps, metallic noises being used by people, especially in like shooters and stuff like that. Or maybe if vocals are kind of not mixed well in a game, they can boost voices. Or here, boost quiet sounds. Boost quiet sounds feels like this is a dad mode. I can imagine like dads being like, "Oh, my child is asleep. I wish that all these low sounds can become a little higher so I can hear them at low volumes," right? Feels like a dad mode. So you're welcome. You're welcome, dads out there. The audio focus feature is available when using headphones connected via USB or analog jack. Okay. So that's cool. Themes are coming back, but I wish, of all the themes that I wish would come back, the theme that I really wish that I could just have again is my Tifa theme. Tifa just sitting under the starlit sky. You know? That was my favorite theme ever. I had that for the longest time on my PS4. But it's gone now. It's not on the PS5. I wish they'd bring it back, please. Please. My Tifa theme. Tifa theme, my beloved. Okay. Next piece of news is Xbox's Indiana Jones game is selling fastest on PS5, despite releasing months later. The PlayStation 5 version of The Great Circle is reportedly outperforming Xbox and PC. The recently released PS5 version of Xbox and Bethesda's Indiana Jones and The Great Circle is the fastest selling version on any platform. That's according to sales data estimates collated by Alinea Analytics, which suggests that the machine game's title is selling more copies on PS5 than it has on Steam and Xbox, where it released months earlier. So yeah, Indiana Jones released on Xbox and Steam first. Then I think that was around end of last year, maybe October, I think, or December. Then November, December, I don't know, I forgot. And then the PS5 version released this April 23, at least this April, right? And now it seems like the game has sold 117.2 thousand copies on PS5 on its first 6 days. Whereas on Steam, on its first 6 days, sold 91.2 thousand copies. So they sold more copies in the same time frame as compared to PC, right? Indiana Jones is estimated to have sold around 310K copies on Steam to date. And so it's expected that the PS5 version will do better than that months later, when it released months later. Now, it comes into question if this was released same day and date on PS5, Xbox, and Steam, the PlayStation version would have done even better, right? Sold even faster than the other versions. And I think this just highlights On Xbox, Alinea estimates that just under 5 million Xbox players have played The Great Circle, though the overwhelming majority of these are said to have come via Game Pass and not purchased. There's a whole thing right now where people don't like it when a publisher or developer announces that, hey, our game now has 5 million players, right? Because what kind of metric does that represent? It's kind of, it feels like a useless metric that 5,000 players have played your game, because it doesn't really give you the numbers of which of these actually bought the game, which of these got it on Game Pass, right? So it just kind of muddies the transparency with the numbers and stuff, and that's why people don't like this whole thing about we got 10 million players of the game. Yeah, sure, but you released your game on Game Pass as well. So what's the split between people who bought your game versus the people who played on Game Pass? So from these 5 million Xbox players, what's the percentage of people who got this game on Game Pass for quote unquote free, right? Honestly, to me, I don't think it really matters, but it's just, it kind of muddies the message a little bit, especially when these developers are celebrating something. They're like, hey, 10 million players, right? Oh, 30 million players or something like that. I feel like that metric is better for a free-to-play game, whereas for a game that you need to buy to get in, it should be like, yeah, we sold 10 million copies, right? I think way back when, the issue was sold versus shipped, right? I think there was a difference before. So sold, of course, that was someone bought the game and they got the game, right? Whereas for shipped is the amount of copies that they sent to like different shops. You know, they sent to stores, they sent to GameStop, they sent to Target, they sent to Data Blitz, right? And that can be much bigger than the amount of people that actually bought the game, right? Because of course you'd ship more copies. You ship a lot of copies to anticipate like demand. But of course, when you go to a store, you can see copies on the shelves. So there's always going to be more copies shipped than sold. And sometimes companies are disingenuous and be like, yay, we shipped 10 million copies, but only 2 million were sold, you know? And there's just a little bit of muddiness with the messaging if now companies can just also say like, hey, we got 5 million players. Yeah, cool, yes, but, you know, just for analysis sake and for people who like the number crunch and just analyze the industry a little bit more, how much was actually sold though? Right. So yeah. And also I think this difference between the PS5 release of Indiana Jones as compared to the Steam release and maybe the Xbox release is that these companies have shaped their audiences already. The audiences have already been shaped. By shaped, I mean like the types of games people like. The types of games who play on this console, what are the games that they like? And for PS5 or PlayStation, it's known that PlayStation is known for single player narrative adventures, right? And it makes sense, you know, and it just brings home the point that yes, people who are PlayStation supporters versus Xbox supporters versus PC supporters all have differing tastes that are very clear to see. Given like a certain game that releases. So in this case, Indiana Jones, first person, even if it is a first person perspective, it's still a narrative adventure with a story, with cool cutscenes, and it looks really good. And that's exactly the type of game PlayStation players want. Now, compared to Steam likes more of those live service games, likes more of those indie games, likes more of those shooters, right? And this just really hammers the point that that these companies have already shaped their audiences through the years, right? And that's why people complain when PlayStation is like, yeah, We know you as an audience predominantly like single-player narrative adventures, but here, have a live service game, right? You can see why there are many people that are vocal in that way, because there is a disparity between the type of audience that you cultivated versus the type of things you're giving to them. And they will respond positively to the thing that they want and respond negatively to the thing that you're giving them that they don't actually want. So yeah, it's interesting. Interesting thing. Just a little thing. That doesn't really matter. Sales of this game don't really matter, but it's just interesting to see that, yeah, of course, PS5 would sell more. Would PS5 players would buy more of this game as compared to Steam players, even if it was released like 4 months later. You know? So yeah, cool. Okay, let's go into the RPG news. We just got a few of you. As per usual, we don't have a lot of RPG news, just only the most interesting ones. So, Elder Scrolls 4 Oblivion Remastered is available now. Game is available on Xbox, PC, PS5, and Game Pass. So available now. Shadow dropped like a few days ago, 2 days ago, 3 days ago. And the remaster has been fully rebuilt in Unreal Engine 5 and features a total graphical revamp along with changes to the audio and gameplay. So, every single asset in the game was recreated from scratch, claims developer Virtuos, which is the developer of the game. The game will also feature completely reanimated lip syncing based on the game's original performance capture data. The game also includes all previously available DLC and expansions, and the game's leveling system has also changed, inspired by both Skyrim and Oblivion. That's interesting. That's kind of interesting how Skyrim is an evolution of Oblivion, and now the Oblivion remastered version got inspiration from Skyrim, which was a sequel to Oblivion in a way. New lines of dialogue have been recorded, and all the game's various races now have unique voices. Sprinting has also been added to the game. All of the character locomotion has been redone from scratch, according to Virtuos. So this honestly feels like more than a remaster, except for the fact that the gameplay is still pretty much intact. I feel like it really feels like it's still, from what I've seen and from what people tell me, is that the game still feels like the original game, just with a nice like new coat of paint on it. But also it also still has some gameplay upgrades as well, but still it even has all the glitches. I saw this clip where it even has like, there was a character in Oblivion where if you talk to her, she said a line. However, after she says the line, she's like, let me do that again. Then she says the line again. And they even kept that intact in the remastered version, which is pretty cool. I like it. Very whimsical. So yeah. And established in 2004, Virtuos is one of the largest game makers in the world. It focuses on supporting the development of major AAA games or bringing existing titles to new platforms. The company's previously worked on franchises including Call of Duty, Tomb Raider, Dark Souls, BioShock, Battlefield, Uncharted, and Horizon, and is currently supporting Konami's development of the Metal Gear Solid 3 remake. We did read about Virtuos before, and now I remember it's because of the Metal Gear Solid Delta, right? So good on them for making a cool remaster for Oblivion. I know Oblivion was super popular back in the day. I even played a little bit of it, but it was too damn old and too damn ugly when I played it. So I didn't really go through a lot of it. Skyrim though, I played a lot, but didn't finish it. Will I play Oblivion as well? Probably. We'll see. I mean, the remastered version at least. But interestingly, here's another article about Oblivion. Oblivion clears 4 million players and shatters Elder Scrolls Steam record. The remaster appears to be a huge hit. 4 million players in its first week. I mean, first, how many days is that? First day? Celebrating the milestone, the publisher wrote on social media, "We are so grateful to the over 4 million of you that have already ventured into Cyrodiil with Oblivion Remastered. Thank you. So on Steam, the game already achieved a peak concurrent player number of 170K, making it by far the most concurrently played Elder Scrolls game. So yeah, I think they reached 4 million in like a day or two. Damn. Wow. Congrats. And this was a shadow drop as well. Though honestly, it was a shadow drop. However, we have been getting weeks upon weeks of leaks of Oblivion, including it being shadow dropped, if I remember correctly, leading up to its release. So it wasn't really a surprise that it released like today. I mean, it's not a surprise that it released at all. I guess it's more a surprise that it released like this week. But we knew it was coming. And I think we even got some screenshots beforehand, if I remember correctly, from some articles that I read. But yeah, congratulations, 4 million. 4 million. Seems like the graphics work that they put in is just more than expected, and people are super happy about that. But also, I feel like they kept a bunch of the whimsy and a bunch of the things that made Oblivion, including the things that make it really funny. That's what I feel like when I think about Oblivion and Skyrim and all these Elder Scrolls games in general, is that they're funny games. I always kind of remember a bunch of memes regarding them here and there, a bunch of glitches. And honestly, I've been seeing a lot of tweets on Twitter about people just posting some glitches and some funny graphical things for Oblivion Remastered and them being happy about it, which is not something that has been happening recently. Recently, when people post like glitches and stuff, they're criticizing the company. They're like, man, we spent like $70 on this game and it just has these glitches. It sucks, right? But for some reason, for this game, it's actually a treat to get glitches and bugs. You know, people are rejoicing when they even retain some bugs or even retain some mistakes from the original game, like the repeated voice line, right? And they even like it when the game looks, even if, you know, the game looks better now, but sometimes it can still look really bad. You know, it's still the original game, so to speak, right? Just with a better coat of paint. But sometimes, because the mechanisms under the hood are still the old game, it can still look weird sometimes. And sometimes some moments in the game can still be very funny. But yeah, because of this. But yeah, Oblivion, 4 million copies, shadow dropped. Imagine just shadow dropping a game and just selling 4 million out of the gate. That's crazy. It's crazy. Now, on the other end of the spectrum, another RPG released alongside Oblivion, and that's Clair Obscur Expedition 33. And this is a new IP from Sandfall Interactive. And one of its biggest draws is that it's a turn-based game with pretty modern, kind of Western graphics. It's not a turn-based anime JRPG, something like that. It's more a Western RPG that's turn-based. And now they shared here recently, I think this was just yesterday, that Clair Obscur Expedition 33 has now sold 1 million units. And this is like 3 days from its release. A new IP from a studio with 30 people only for a game that cost $50, right? Sold 1 million units. And this is without Game Pass. This is not including Game Pass in the equation. So that's a lot. That's a lot. 30 developers work on this game. How much is that per head? How much money is that per head? 1 million divided by 30. 1 million divided by 30. That's $33,000 per head in that studio. Each of them made $33,000. for the studio. That's crazy. And there were even concerns that the launch of Oblivion Remastered might hurt the sales of Clair Obscur Expedition 33, but nope, apparently not. On its social accounts, developer Sandful Interactive has announced a new RPG has reached a sales milestone of 500,000 after just 24 hours. Then, in 3 days, they reached 1 million. That's crazy. That's crazy. I can't wait to start playing this. Produced by a team of around 30 people, the new IP is an attempt at a modern, high-budget, turn-based RPG inspired by the likes of Final Fantasy and Persona. Also, the reviews for this game are insane as well. They're very, very high. So congratulations to them for reaching this milestone, 1 million units for a brand new IP made by a small team. That's great. It's good. It's good to know that you can make a smaller game with a smaller studio and still captivate 1 million players to buy the game. And that's aside from Game Pass, right? Although there is a rhetoric here that is pretty annoying that I've been seeing on Twitter. It's that this is kind of like an affront to Final Fantasy in a way. Because look at this little game, 30 developers, right? 30 developers, small game, $50, 1 million units sold, right? Whereas, for example, Final Fantasy VII Remake, 7 million units sold, big ass game, enormous budget, hundreds upon hundreds of people working on that game, and they sold 7 million. But also, it's a bit annoying because if you think about it, this is 1 million copies for a new IP. There's some nuance there because it's a new IP, but it's also 1 million copies across every platform, aside from Switch, right? PC, Xbox, and PS5. 1 million and everything. Whereas for FF7 Remake, or Rebirth, or whatever, Remake, that was like 7 million on one platform, the PS5. And people are kind of pitting these games together, pitting these games against each other, and using these figures to make them fight or something, to prove a point. And it's kind of annoying. It's very annoying because there's a lot of nuance to these numbers that people are just being like, oh yeah, look at this. We sold 1 million already and it's a turn-based game. And they're making this into an argument that Final Fantasy should go back to turn-based. Should just go turn-based because, you know, something, whatever. And it's very annoying to see on Twitter. People are just pitting these games together. But honestly, the Clair Obscur and its developers have not shied away from saying that, you know, this game was inspired by Final Fantasy and Persona. This is actually a little love letter to those games that shaped them. And then people are just using it as a champion against a real-time action and be like, oh yeah, turn-based is the way. Wherein we've had a bunch of turn-based games already. Since Final Fantasy X, we have so much Persona, Metaphor, what's that game from Mistwalker? I kind of forgot what the name was. You know, the Bravely Default Final Fantasy of Flying Fairy, World of Final Fantasy. We got so many turn-based games. It's just it's just very annoying to see all this turn-based real-time action, whatever arguments going on. So, but good job, Clair Obscur Expedition 33 for this milestone. Mm-hmm. All right. Damn, this really is going to be a short episode. There really is nothing to talk about. Also, I guess I didn't really talk too much about that, but Marathon was also revealed. Marathon being this, I don't really have an article up here because when I was looking for articles, for some reason, I couldn't find one. At least within the 2 weeks that I was searching for. But Marathon just released its stuff. Marathon, if you didn't know, is the newest game from Bungie. Bungie is the most expensive acquisition by Sony ever in terms of game developers. And they made Destiny 2. And long ago, they made Halo and stuff like that. And Sony basically got Bungie for their live service expertise. However, they've been kind of sucking lately. They suck. And, you know, there's a whole thing about Bungie. We talked about it before, where Sony is now managing basically Bungie and stuff like that. Whatever. But anyway, now that Destiny 2 is basically over, they just released the first trailer and first information for Marathon, which is going to be a extraction shooter, and it's gonna be PlayStation's next foray into live service, which is still a thing that they're trying to capture, which I still agree with that they should be doing. But yeah, so Marathon, they revealed the gameplay, they revealed a cinematic, they revealed a freaking cinematic, a short film that looked really good. And one thing I have to say about Marathon is that I think it's gonna be better. It's easily gonna be better than Concord for sure. Even the visual design of it is very striking. I really like that kind of yellow greenish tint that they add to their marketing material. It's very striking and very unique and singular. If I think about it, it's very singular in its art style and art direction. And that in itself was the biggest problem in Concord. And I think Marathon already solved that, honestly. And honestly, I'm super excited for it. I can't wait to play it. I remember when Bungie first released Destiny, like the alpha for Destiny, I played that game. I was enamored. I was completely hook, line, and sinker. I was in. Then I played Destiny. Then it got up to the final raids and stuff. And then really, I'm not really a shooter gamer, so I just dropped it after a while. Now, me seeing Marathon and what it has to offer kind of gives me the same feeling I had when I first saw Destiny and first played Destiny, where it's super interesting. It's a world that really resonates with me in an art style, art direction that really looks super cool to my tastes. And I can't wait to just dig in and play it. So yeah, extraction shooter, but it seems like it's an extraction shooter with a little bit of twist, I think, based from the descriptions they gave, but we still don't have like complete information about it. I think there's an alpha or whatever going on right now that I'm not part of. Closed alpha, closed beta, I don't know. But we'll see in the future. I can't wait to get more news about Marathon, and we'll be able to see more about it. But yeah, that's it for the news, I think. Okay. And finally, for the games I have been playing, I have two very interesting games, actually, that I want to talk about. First off is 100 Line, the Last Defense Academy? Wait, hold on. 100 Line Last Defense Academy. Yep. 100 Line Last Defense Academy is the latest game made or written, at least by Kodaka. Kodaka and... wait, I forgot the other name. Kodaka and Uchi... Wait. Kodaka and who? Wait. Kotaro Uchikoshi. Now, Kodaka, specifically, you may remember, if you're into like visual novels and stuff, they wrote Danganronpa, which is honestly one of my favorite visual novels, maybe second only to The House in Fata Morgana, right? So that's Kazutaka Kodaka. And then it's written, they wrote it with Kotaro Uchikoshi, which is familiar to the people who like the Zero Escape games. So literally these two people combined together wrote the 100 Line Last Defense Academy. Now, I haven't really played the full game yet. I've only played the demo. I think I talked before in a previous episode a bit about me wanting to play the demo for it, because it seems like it's getting a lot of love from people. It's getting a lot of positive impressions and reviews from people. And also I saw that Kodaka was very, very enthusiastic about the game and how he talks about the game on Twitter. He keeps replying to fans. He keeps like quote retweeting fans' replies and says stuff about the game. And he also says something like, "Yeah, if you don't buy the game, I'm gonna quit," or something like that. It's over for me, right? But he seems like he's very proud of the game, and so I was like, "Sure, let's play it. Let's do it." Remember, I went to a hotel a few days ago, and I put this on my Steam Deck, and I played it on my Steam Deck, and God, is it good. So first off, my first impression about the game was when I first saw it on like, when did I first see it? Was it in Nintendo Direct or a PlayStation Showcase? I kind of forgot. But it's one of the it's a direct of some kind. And when I saw it, I immediately also recognized the Danganronpa's art style in a way. But one of the biggest things looking at the characters and stuff like that was that, yeah, these characters don't have as strong designs as Danganronpa characters. Like, they look cool and they look, as I expect them to be, but their color, their color like designs, their color palettes, even the details in their designs and stuff, it feels like Danganronpa on a budget in a way, right? But the more I played this game, this demo, the more I understood everything about these characters, about why they look the way they look. It's because when you play the game in itself, it's very immersive. And these characters fit within the world that the developers made in 100 Line, Last Defense Academy. It's like, if you put these characters on their own as a PNG outside, you put them, just put it on your PC, look at them. You look at them and you're like, this is kind of terrible. This kind of sucks, right? Especially if you remember like the character design from Danganronpa. You got Junko Enoshima, you got Kokichi Oma and stuff like that. It's like, you probably will feel like, yeah, the artist kind of lost their sauce for this one. Maybe this isn't their best work or stuff like that. However, if you put these characters inside the game and you immerse yourself in the game world and the context of the game itself, these characters look freaking great. Actually, like they fit in the world so good that you don't really think too much about them. In terms of their looks don't really take you out of the game when you look at them. They fit so perfectly into the game's world and graphics. This game, by the way, looks way better than Danganronpa in a lot of ways. It feels like it's very big budget. I think I read some tweets about the development of this game before, is that the developers really just went into debt making this game because they really wanted it to be the best game that it can be, right? And also, plus the fact that the story is also extremely big, apparently. Like, they talked about having 100 endings. And you know what? And this is 100 endings. You're like, yeah, it's going to be a bunch of joke endings probably, right? But however, it doesn't feel that way. It doesn't, from what people are talking about, it doesn't feel that it's all just throwaway little endings like, hey, you went to fish and that's it, you just disappear into the ether, stuff like that. There are probably going to be a lot of joke endings, but still, it seems like they really wrote like 100 different routes or something based from what people's first impressions of this game are. Like, I've been seeing a bunch of people that are like, okay, I finally got my first ending 30 hours in. And there's some people that's like, okay, I got my third ending. I'm now 50 hours in. And I now finally understand the vision that Kodaka and Uchikoshi are going for, right? I even saw a super cool tweet that this game is actually a horror game. Like a horror game? Because after going through a few endings themselves, you get to realize why it's a horror game. And it's because you need to go through these events over and over or something like that. And you unveil more and more about the story, about these characters. And it's this repeating, this whole cycle of repeating things that makes it a horror game, which is actually pretty interesting to me. It feels like a live, die, repeat kind of thing that's going on, but I can't really definitively tell what it is because I only played the demo. So from the demo starts off with, it's very cliche in a way how it starts. You got the main character who's like, the day started like any other day. I walk the street like any other day. People are doing the same things as they do every day. Everything's normal, nothing's new. It's just rinse and repeat over and over, right? The main character, basically the characters live in this kind of version of Tokyo that's kind of protected by a force field from outside forces that they don't know about. And intermittently, there are big alarms. They're like, everybody, go into the shelters. There's a dangerous thing, something happening. And so when these alarms go off, they go inside a shelter. They wait a few minutes, and then the alarms go off and be like, yeah, you can go back and live your normal lives again, right? And it's this mystery that fuels the whole thing, because what is going on? What is this thing that they need to cower from? They need to go to shelters from. And the game doesn't even show it, at least in the beginning. They don't show what's attacking them. It's a very Evangelion in that way, where in Evangelion, you got like intermittent attacks from angels and stuff like that. But in this case, you're a civilian, and you only see it from a perspective of a civilian, right? And so you get these attacks, and they say it's a normal occurrence, and it's been happening for many, many years now, that people don't even know what's attacking them, what the danger is. They just go to the shelter and just go up and just go about their days, right? But of course, because this is the story starts here, is when the alarm that happens is an alarm that hasn't gone off before. It seems to be more dangerous than before. And it seems like whatever it is that's attacking their place has breached the place and has now caused mayhem in this kind of protected city of Tokyo, right? And this is where the story starts. A mascot character basically talks to our main character and is like, hey, I choose you, right? You are going to be a super cool guy. I'm going to give you power. Here's a knife. Stab your heart with it. And by stabbing his heart with this knife or sword, he gains powers to fight against these kind of monsters that are attacking the city. And that's the first time you see the combat system as well. We're going to talk about the combat system later, but yeah, so that happens, and they defeat the monsters, stuff like that. And then they're taken blackout, suddenly just a blackout. I forgot what it was. Suddenly just they're teleported elsewhere. So they're kind of recruited into the Last Defense Academy, which is a school setting, much like Danganronpa. So they wake up in a classroom, and a bunch of other people also wake up in a classroom who were apparently recruited by said mascot character to fight in the Last Defense Academy. And so that's where the story starts off. So it kind of goes back to, now it kind of feels like Danganronpa, but it actually isn't. In Danganronpa, it was like a murder game. It was a killing game, right? A character even straight up addresses it. They're like, oh, you know what this means? We wake up in a classroom and we don't know each other. You know what this means? It's a killing game, right? I wonder who's going to die first. Ooh, right? But yeah, they wake up in classroom and everybody's disoriented, and then the mascot character comes in and orients you. Yeah, you're in the Last Defense Academy, and you will all gain your skills and abilities here. You'll get better here to fight this alien threat that's been a threat to humankind for so long already. And that's basically the extent of what I know about the game so far in terms of story. But I also want to talk about the combat system, and the combat system is very good. Now, it's a tactics RPG, right? And of course, each different character that you have has different abilities, and there's an AP points system that you use up per turn. So you can imagine, tactics system. You choose one character, move them close to an enemy, do an attack, and that's 1 AP. Then let's say you have 3 AP, you have 4 characters, you can only move 3 units to do an attack and stuff like that, right? You need to budget your AP. Then after you do your attacks, the enemy does their own attacks and stuff like that. However, based from the first few encounters that I had, it seems like it's kind of like a protect the base kind of structure so far, where in tactics games, you're mostly pitted against, individuals. You're pitted against a mage, a knight, or a lancer, or whatever. Stuff like that. However, it seems like in this game, you're pitted against groups of enemies. So it's not unusual to have like there's 4 of you, and there are like groups of like 20 enemies in front of you in different formations. Some move in squares, some move in lines, there are some big enemies, singular enemies on the field as well. And your attacks as well are a lot of it is mostly AoE attacks. So it's like the Dynasty Warriors of tactics games in a way. And it seems like so far that the goals of the enemies are to attack the last defense academy. And in that way, it's kind of like a wave tower defense thing going on as well. But it's still a tactics RPG. So that's pretty cool, actually. And also the animations and the gameplay itself is pretty fun. And it doesn't feel like when I played 13 Sentinels and the gameplay is like, what the hell is this? No. Although I did enjoy the gameplay in 13 Sentinels still, but this is more digestible in a way, and very traditional when it comes to like tactics RPGs. It's very easy to get into, at least for me, who's really into that stuff. The graphics of the game, like I told you, is better than Danganronpa. It looks better, feels better, it's cleaner. There's a lot more cutscenes. It looks really good. Character designs are really nice as well. The music is also really good. Of course, everything about this game just screams quality, and I'm actually very surprised that it's this, like, that the quality is so high for this game. When I saw this game, I was like, yeah, there's been a bunch of like games with a Danganronpa art style recently, even Tribe 9, stuff like that. And they're like, they're small games, not really super interested in them. Just give me a Danganronpa, right? Now this game feels like basically a new Danganronpa. And I'm so here for it. I'm gonna be playing it sometime in the future. Maybe not now because I still have a lot on my plate. I have like Clair Obscur, I have Metaphor, I have Death Stranding, Atelier Yumia, but I'm definitely gonna play this down the line for sure. So yeah, that was 100 Line, the Last Defense Academy. If you're into Danganronpa and visual novels, I think this could be the best visual novel game out there with gameplay, possibly. It just feels that way to me, and I can't wait to play it and dig my teeth into it and see maybe the 100 endings. We'll see. Okay. Then the last game that I wanted to talk about, and the last topic for our podcast episode for today. Wow, this is really a very short one. We're like almost 2 hours in. Let me just drink some water quick. So this next game that I want to talk about is Romancing Saga 2. Now, Romancing Saga 2 isn't a new game. It's actually a remake of a game from 1993, which was developed by Square for the Super Famicom, and is a 5th entry in the Saga series. And they recently remade it. Romancing Saga 2 Revenge of the Seven was remade. When was this released? It was this year. It's this year, just a few weeks ago. Yeah, a few weeks ago. And it's basically a remake of the 1993 game. And I've always been interested in Saga games for as long as I can remember them. Because, I'm very Square Enix pilled. And any game that they release, I want to play at some point. However, for some reason, the Saga games weren't very accessible to me when I was a kid. I don't know why, if it was just released in Japan, it was just in Japanese, if it just was super hard to find or something like that. But I couldn't really play the original ones, whatever Saga game there was, but I've always been interested in them. And so Romancing Saga 2, I was able to play the first 5 hours of it. And this game is very interesting. And if this game played the same-ish in 1993, I'm confident to say that this game is ahead of its time. Like way ahead of its time. It's really good. You know why? I'm going to tell you why. First off, let's talk about the remake treatment they have for it, the graphics of it. The graphics are really good. It's kind of as expected from a kind of double A production. For whatever it's worth, it's really nice. It's clean and just right, honestly. It's not super detailed. It's also not like ugly. It doesn't feel low budget, but it is. But the most important thing is it's very clean and it's very easy to look at and easy to get into. This is the same way I felt when I played Type 0 going from like the PS Vita to the PlayStation 4 version. Yeah, it's really good. This is also the feeling I got when I played Visions of Mana, where it's just a clean presentation all around. But the whole premise of Saga, Romancing Saga, is that so it starts off with the Emperor. You are the emperor of a empire and you have a son, right? And you have a retinue with you. The retinue is basically the party members that you surround yourself with. You can have like 5 party members, 4 or 5 party members, if I remember correctly. And it starts off as you going through a dungeon and clearing this dungeon of whatever is, whatever you need to clear. It's just a bunch of monsters, right? And then you get to know these characters and stuff like that. The gameplay is turn-based. It's a turn-based game, and it's pretty basic. You kind of exploit enemies' weaknesses, and that's pretty much most of it, exploiting their weaknesses. Oh, it has an interesting system of finding out weaknesses. It actually feels very much like Persona, where you try different attacks to find the enemy's weakness. And once you get the weaknesses, then you can breeze through the enemies and stuff like that. So that's pretty cool. So that's for the gameplay. But there are a lot of mechanics that play into the gameplay that I'm going to talk about in a few. But the premise is you're emperor, you have a son, and then when you come back from this mission, there is like a character visits the emperor and talks to them, whatever. You don't really see. And then you gain control of the son for a bit. And then you guys go out on another dungeon run, right? You clear out some monsters, some goblins or whatever that are threatening your kingdom. And then when the emperor and the son and the retinue go back to the kingdom, it finds the kingdom being attacked by this super powerful creature who is referred to as a hero, right? So this is already interesting because this is what I was talking about when I was streaming this. Is like, hey, emperors are usually reserved for evil kings, right? And the way they frame the enemies in this game are heroes. So that's why it's Romancing Saga 2 Revenge of the Seven. There are 7 heroes, right? Why they're heroes, I don't really know, but there's 7 heroes. And so your empire is being attacked by a hero, which is named Kazinsi or something. And so when you go back to your kingdom, you fight Kazinsi. And oh, by the way, your character, the son, has a brother, right? And so the brother fought against Kazinsi and apparently died. Kazinsi used a attack that's basically insta-kill and killed the protagonist's brother. And so, they died. Oh no, it's sad, right? And so the emperor and the son and the retinue go out to Kazinsi's hideout to fight him, to exact revenge on Kazinsi, which is the hero that attacked the empire. And during this fated encounter, Kazinsi uses the insta-kill attack on the emperor, which is your dad, which is the main character's dad. And so the emperor, as a result, dies, right? Now, this is where things get very interesting for Romancing Saga 2, is that, remember, there was a little envoy in the beginning of the game where the emperor and that character talked and stuff like that. But basically, she gave the emperor this thing called inheritance magic. So the abilities and skills of the emperor and memories can be passed on to whoever they want to pass it on. So in this case, the Emperor passed on their abilities and skills and memories to the son, which is the main character of the game, the son. And which is interesting because the first few hours of the game, the son was really weak. The son had no abilities. He only had a sword, right? And then when the Emperor passed on the abilities of the son basically took the skill levels of the Emperor for themselves. So while the son had level 0 in swords and level 0 in magic or something like that, whatever, after the inheritance magic was used on the son suddenly had level 7 in swordmanship, level 8 in short swords and stuff like that. So they basically passed off the abilities. And so the son suddenly became super strong as the Emperor, right? And so the son became the Emperor because the Emperor is dead. So now your main character is the Emperor, right? And you have a retinue around you. And now later into the story, you go and face off against Kazinsi again, the hero. And now in this fated encounter, when Kazinsi uses the insticle magic on the main character dodged the insticle magic. And whenever the Kazinsi uses this magic on the main character, they keep dodging it. Right? And they're like, how? How is that possible? No one else has ever dodged my attack and you just dodge it 5 times. And this is where the cool thing about Romancing Saga comes in, is that the main character said that since they inherited the memories of their father, like everything from their father, they were able to dodge. They were able to evade the attack because they now have the knowledge of that attack in their kind of memories. So they now know how to dodge it and stuff like that. And so we were able to defeat Kazinsi, defeat him, and peace was restored to the kingdom. And now 1 year later, the son is now emperor, like actual emperor. And now this is where things get super interesting because this seems to be the gimmick of Romancing Saga 2. And this is just based also off the description of the game itself. The description of the game says that this story covers like 1,000 years. It's a 1,000-year story, or thousands of years, right? So you can see where this is going in terms of its story. So what's going to happen is that, what I assume is going to happen is that you're going to go through multiple emperors throughout your playthrough. And for one reason or another, your main character is going to die of an attack or something. And then you'll need to choose who will inherit your powers. And as you go along through the story, your main character, your emperor, will become stronger and stronger because you're going through the story of 1,000 years. So right now, the skill level is 7. Who knows after 1,000 years what the emperor then would be? They probably have a level freaking 100 in sword, level 100 plus in fireball magic or stuff like that, right? And that's very cool. That's very cool. And also tragic in a way. But when I realized that that was the case, this game suddenly became a very high priority for me to play and finish. Now it's not just story beats where characters can die. The very interesting thing about this game is that there are no levels, right? When you level up your character, you're not leveling up your character's level. You're leveling up their skill in a weapon, or a magic, or an element, or stuff like that. It's kind of like Final Fantasy 2. However, the most important thing that a character has in this game is LP, or life points. Life points are the thing that if is depleted to 0, your character can permanently die. And so each character has a predetermined amount of life points. I don't know if you can recover life points. Doesn't seem like it to me, but some say there are ways to recover them, maybe rare ways. But for example, the main character, the king. The king's life points was 19. So technically, the king can die in battle 19 times and get revived, But if they die for one more time after 19 is used up, they'll die permanently in the game. Like, there's no way to revive them anymore. So by dying, I mean being downed in battle, when your HP becomes 0 in battle. So then the sun has a life points of 16, right? And then an archer that I have has a life points of 13. Some have 17, 12, or something like that, right? And because of this life point system, the battles become actually there's high stakes to a battle. And you're probably thinking, damn, 19 points to live, 19 points, 19 times to die. That's a lot. That's a long rope for you to hang on to have your character like live through so long, right? However, one thing I noticed from this game is this game doesn't care about killing your characters. This game will introduce super hard enemies with big hard-hitting attacks just out of the blue. That'll just deplete your life points one after the other if you don't pay attention, if you don't care for the characters too much, right? If your strategy's off, they don't care. They can one-shot some characters as well. So that's cool, and that's the main gimmick of Romancing Saga 2. And I think this game needs to be played by more people. And I can't wait to see how this story plays out, how the gimmick plays out through multiple generations. Because right now, like, there's a bunch of cutscenes, there's a bunch of characters, they have voice lines and everything. But what happens if you go through so many emperors because you're bad at let's say you're bad at the game, and then you go through so many emperors, and do they still have voice lines? Do they still have cutscenes? Or at one point, is it just going to be a bunch of randomly generated characters over and over until you finally get to the last emperor or something like that? Oh, by the way, when I first started the game made me decide between two characters, a male and a female character, and it had me name them, right? And so far, after 5 hours of playing, they haven't shown themselves yet. So, which makes me believe that whoever character you chose in the beginning of the game will be the final emperor that you will finish the game with, which is very cool. And it's also going to be interesting to see like the history of characters that you go through. And if I'm correct, the choice of who the next emperor isn't predetermined. It's up to you, the player, who you want to be the next emperor amongst your retinue. So that's very cool. So you can imagine. So we started this game with this emperor, which is good at swords and short swords, right? And the son was more strong at magic. They're good at fireballs, stuff like that. So they inherited the sword and short sword skills from their dad, and now this character now has a sword and short sword capabilities, and now then they add that to their fireball capabilities. And now let's say this character dies and you have someone else inherit. You're going to have to choose amongst your retinue, what skills do you want them to have? So if you choose this character that's good at bows, then when that character becomes an emperor, then they're going to be great at bows, swords, short swords, fireball. Then the next character, let's say they're good at water magic, you have that character inherit, the emperor thing, and they suddenly you add more abilities as you go along through generations. And so by the end of the game, I assume that your emperor is going to have all these friggin' cool ass abilities that can range from anything, from all the weapon types and all the magic types and stuff. And it's going to be so cool to see that play out. So this game is truly ahead of its time when it was released in 1993. If it still retains the same like gameplay mechanics and stuff like that. But damn, this game is so good. Can't wait to play more. But that's the extent of what I want to talk about for Romancing Saga 2. I think there's nothing else to talk about. Like I said, I wanted to put the news on the forefront now and just end with the games to talk about. And that's it for this episode of Triangle to Win. I forgot to put the timestamps for the previous episode, so I'm gonna do that soon. I think now my schedule is gonna be less hectic, that I can finally figure out the clip situation for the channel. But everybody who listened up to this point, thank you so much for listening. And for those who want to know how to support the show, go to patreon.com/triangle to win for details about that. We got 2 tiers that you can subscribe to, and all of the money will be put back into the show and getting more assets and getting more clips, as we go along. But yeah, thank you so much, everyone. That was a fun little episode, even if it's just 2 hours. It's just 30 minutes short of a normal episode. There just really isn't anything to talk about. So hopefully next week we'll have more. What is the news coming on in the horizon? Oh, next week I'll probably be able to talk more about Clair Obscur. I'll also probably be able to talk about maybe Oblivion, if I try Oblivion. Or maybe some more romancing Saga. Who knows? The future is bright. But that's it for me. And I'll see you again in 2 weeks. I am Karlobster. And this is Triangle to Win, episode 6. Goodbye!